Hey, what it do everybody? It's Jake here and welcome back to my channel. I'm new to this YouTube thing, so I'm learning as we go along. And one of the main things I've learned about YouTube and about doing long form videos is to ensure that we do something that is impactful. I want to make videos that I know you want to see, at least something that I can breathe a breath of life into and add my little spin and maybe provide some insights that will allow you to create the same dish. Appreciate you all from being here. I love that you guys are following me on this journey. Got lots of love for you. But for now, let's get on to cooking. Okay, so pot stickers. I've seen a lot of recipes, and I guess it's for simplicity's sake, but my recipe is not something that can be done in the same day. It is probably, at the minimum, a 2-day process. You do need to make the soup first. You need to let that chill. You need to let that settle. You need to let that set. And then we put that into the dumpling meat. So I just pulled this out of the freezer yesterday. This is pork skin, pre-packaged. You can buy a big slab, cut it off yourself. That's a bit of a pain if you ask me. My local Chinese grocery store has the pork skin separate, and this is exactly how I need it. We're going to be rendering this down in a pot, essentially making gelatin pork skin soup, and that will set, and that will become like jello, which we will add into our dumplings. Alright, we're also going to need some green onion, scallions, and some ginger. Now, full disclosure, this soup that's going to be inside of the dumpling, it's literally just going to be pork skin, green onion, ginger, and some sort of chicken powder. I don't have any, so I'll be using mushroom powder. It's not that elaborate. It doesn't need to be because you also have the meat that it's going to be in there, inside of the dumpling as well. So, you know. Alright, so I'm just filling up a pot of water here to facilitate the soup process. I also just washed the green onions. These are big boys. Look how thick these guys are. I love it. I'm not going to waste any of these. I don't like to waste veggies, so I'm going to just crack them in half, throw the entire thing in. It seems like a lot, but we want a lot of flavor into this soup. I want to use a lot of that because I really want to get some good flavor in there. I don't want it just to be chicken powdery or you know, powdered flavory, if that makes any sense to you. Alright, so as for the ginger, you know, I want to put a lot in there too, but ginger can get really overpowering if you put too much, so I'm going to err on the side of caution, and I'm just going to put a piece about that big. It's about that thick, a couple inches. Just a quick smash, throw it in. And now on to the pork skin. Alright, so this is what we're dealing with. Okay, truthfully, I didn't know it was going to be this big. That's pretty big. I'm alright with it. Yeah, let me just give it a quick rinse. Alright, so we are going to be cooking this down all the way. You could cut this into pieces. I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it that way. And I'm going to top it off with water. And we're literally going to be cooking this down as long as we need to get all of this gelatin rendered out of this skin. As I do normally when I'm making stock. Any of you that's followed me on Instagram or even here on my shorts will know that I love to stick stock on the stove overnight. It can be a costly process, so there are methods to do it within 3 or 4 hours, but I like to do it overnight just to ensure we're extracting all the flavor, all the nutrients, all the collagen out of the bones or whatever it is that we're making stock out of. So in this case, it is pork skin, and as you can see, it was quite a lot of it. So now we're just going to get this on the stove, bring it up to heat, which means we're going to bring it up to a boil, and then we're going to drop it down to low and let it do its own thing for a bit. And sorry, by the way, if you can hear my dishwasher running. You know, I got to get it done now while we're filming this, otherwise I never will. But try to ignore, and I apologize for the extra ambient noise. Yeah, so that's about it for now. I'm just going to clean up, tidy up. That's doing its thing. There's a good chance that it's going to render a lot of impurities from the skin, so you are going to need to tend to it perhaps every hour for the first little bit, just to skim all the impurities off. Make sure you get all of it, because we don't want to have that clouding the stock or getting any off flavors in there. So I just remembered that I forgot to mention the flavoring or the seasoning or the mushroom powder that I'll be adding. We're going to hold off for now because I want to take some time and focus on rendering the gelatin from the skin. Once we have all the gelatin rendered and we have a cohesive stock, then we'll be adding the flavorings. That way we ensure that it doesn't get too salty, or or we don't cloudy up the stock in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, so we'll do all that tomorrow, like I said. All right, so as you can see, there's some impurities that have come to the surface here of the stock. We're just gonna skim them off. And this will happen for probably another hour or so. So we're just going to keep tending to it, following the standard rules of stock making. That way we don't end up with a cloudy stock or a funky tasting one. All right, welcome back, guys. Day 2. And you got to take a look at this. Here is the stock that has been simmering overnight. It's reduced a couple times, actually. I kept refilling it. Just so I can keep on rendering the process, rendering the gelatin out of the skin. Pardon me. And if you can see, there's nothing left in this. It's falling apart. It's completely, you could have early on blended it and then put it back in to make sure you're getting all the gelatin out. But if you leave it long enough, I will do that anyways. We've also ensured that we've gotten maximum extraction of all the flavors, the green onions and the ginger, and now we're ready to strain this and then flavor it with the mushroom powder. So let's get going on that. That's my dog in the background. Here, let me get my chinois. Okay, classical chinois. We're using this as opposed to a conical strainer to ensure that we don't get any bits in there. We want to minimize the pieces of matter we get in our stock, because we are going to be putting these inside of dumplings. So it's going to pour everything in there slowly, as neatly as possible. And I hope that we can fit it all in here. Oh, great, we could. Okay, that's good. That makes me very happy. As you can see from everything in here, everything's sort of lost its color. There is virtually no flavor, pretty much nothing else left inside of this pot. And it's all now in the stock. Just give this a moment to drain. Done. So, as you can see, well, maybe you can't see, but I could see it. It's kind of thick. It's thicker than it was when we first started. That's because gelatin's still pretty hot. It will solidify even more as it cools down. So right now there's only aromatics in here. There's really no salt, nothing to bring out the flavors. I don't really want to use salt in here because we're going to be putting a number of salty things inside of the meat that's going to be in the dumpling. So I am going to put some mushroom powder. Now, mushroom powder is really just shiitake mushrooms that have been dried up and ground. It's debatable whether or not there's MSG in here. There's already natural MSG happening with mushrooms. We're not going to put that much. Really just enough to flavor this. And we're going to let this cool down. A couple times. We're going to let this cool down a couple times, actually, because we need to get it into a flatter type of container so that we can chop it up into little squares and stuff. So, oh, that's delicious. Okay, we're good to go. We're good to go. Right, and just as a judgment call, I'm going to put in some white pepper as well, just to accentuate everything that's going on inside of this soup. All right, and we are good. We are good to go. We're going to get this to cool down in the fridge slightly, and then we're going to pour it out into a flatter container. Hopefully, we can get it to set that way, but we'll see at that time. All right, so the best thing about that stock actually is that, we're not going to use it all, but you can use it in your other dishes. If you're making other, Asian dishes, Chinese dishes, use that as something to give your soups and your sauces a little bit more body. It'll add in a delicious note, a little bit of a porky flavor, a little bit of mushroom. Perfect to add. All right, folks, I said it was going to take a couple days, and it has. Here we are. And the next day, I think this actually might be day 3. In any event, we've made the stock, the soup, that's going to go inside of the dumpling. We've let it sit overnight. We've let it now sit in the fridge to set up. And I've put it inside of a tray. And this is what we have here. This is the gelatin. As you can see, it's Jello. We're going to cut this up, throw this into the meat, and that's the mixture that's going to be going inside of the dumpling. So it's important to keep this cold. We don't want it to melt. It'll be easier to work with while it's cold. And we will throw it into the meat at the last moment, mix it together, and fill the dumpling wrappers back in the fridge. Okay, now on to the filling. You'd be surprised at how generic the ingredients of this filling are. You've probably seen it, heard it a billion times when it comes to Asian food. I know I have. I could probably recite it to you right now. Sugar, soy sauce, dark soy sauce, oyster sauce, white pepper. It's fairly standard. But what that tells me is that proportion is really what makes the difference here. We can go ahead and we can put like an equal teaspoon of everything, and it'll probably taste fine, but what will differentiate one cook's dumpling filling from another will be the ratio of each. And then, finer things like chicken powder versus mushroom powder. Salt, if you want to go that way. Cooking wine, I've heard some people use. We're going to keep it simple. I'm not even going to put any vegetables in here. You could virtually go ahead and stick in some chives in here. That'd be delicious. Dill, which is one of my favorite dumplings. Delicious as well. Cabbage, which you can salt, pull out all the moisture, strain, throw that in here. That'd be very, very delicious as well. Even kimchi would be great. This is a great base. It's a generic base that's very forgiving. And you can virtually eat it the way that we're going to have it today, which is plain, or add whatever you like to it. Okay, so my dumpling recipe starts with a flavored water. It's ginger and green onion. Let's get that ginger out here. We don't even need a lot, to be honest, because we're going to try to pulverize this as best as we can with our knife. We're going to throw it in some water. We're going to let that steep for a bit. We're going to squeeze all the ingredients out and try to impart as much ginger and green onion into the water. Then we're going to scrap the solids and we're only going to use that water. That way we can get the flavor of the ginger and the onion without actually putting chunks of ginger and onion in there. I know my wife hates green onion chunks texture, so does my daughter. So this will help to avoid that, but yet still give them the flavor that gives us a nice full flavored pot sticker. don't know why I took a second there to answer that, or to say that. But anyways, okay, so just cutting everything around the same size. We're not even going to be too picky here. I'm just going to run my knife through. Again, we're not trying to be pretty or precise. We're really just trying to chop this up as much as you can. You can also take out a food processor, do it that way. Actually, now that I mentioned it, I probably should have done that, but whatever. You can work on your chopping skills. Okay. And the ginger. As you can tell, I'm not really caring about what things look like. If you like chunks of ginger and green onion, or you don't mind it, feel free to stick it in there. Skip this part altogether. I personally don't like chunks of ginger, so this serves me well. And as I mentioned earlier, my family definitely doesn't like chunks of green onions, so this works for us. All right, in a bowl. Now I've heard before you're not supposed to use your knife to scrape the board and pick up stuff. I get why. I understand it. I'm probably wrong for doing it. So, you know, use it to your discretion. I will continue to do it because it serves me. We're going to add some water in here. Just like that much. Just enough to cover everything, and we're going to let that steep for about 10 minutes. Figured that was a good time to get a jump on that meat. Just going to get a quick cleanup on our board. Just a quick wipe down. And get the meat. Okay, so as for the water, I'm just going to take a little masher, a little pestle here, or is this a mortar? I can't remember. Whatever. You know what I mean. I'm just gonna mash up everything that's in here. Try to like expedite the process of having these things steep. And obviously, the longer you let this sit, the more flavor you're going to have. I don't need to be too picky. So, I'm pretty happy with that. I am going to pour some of this liquid into the meat. Then we're going to mix it in. I'm going to let this pork drink all of that water, that flavored water. And it will. As you can see, it's already started to drink it all. I wanted it. This will help to ensure that we have a nice, juicy filling. Okay, so as I was mentioning, pretty generic stuff here. You've seen this marinade before, and I guess when it comes to dumplings, you get really delicious ones from the most experienced dumpling makers because they just have a feeling for it. They have a feeling for good flavor, if that makes any sense. So the more you do it, the better you get, right? So going by my palate, I'd say about that's 2.5 teaspoons of sugar. I'm gonna go in with some dark soy sauce Not so much, because I really don't care about the color of these, to be completely honest with you. I could have even just omitted that altogether, but regular soy sauce we're going to put in. That's probably about a 1/4 cup. Oyster sauce. You do not want to put too much of that stuff, because if everything tastes like oyster sauce, it'll be a bit weird. Alright, we have some mushroom powder. One of my favorite ingredients. It's got a nice salinity to it, so a lot of the time with a combination of other ingredients, you can pretty much omit salt altogether. And we have some white pepper. Not too much of that either, because in my opinion, when you put too much white pepper into something, it starts to taste like somebody's mouth. You know what I mean? That like spit kind of taste. I don't know if it's just me, but like I've had it too much before, and I had to like sit back and be like, why does that taste like that chef's mouth? You know what I mean? Fucking weird, but that's just what I think. Okay, so here is some ginger powder. Oh, sorry, ginger powder. This is garlic powder. Sorry about that. I find that garlic's a real sleeper when it comes to Chinese food or Asian food. Comes in many different forms, and it's sort of like thrown in there as like a sleeper ingredient. You don't even know what's in there, but something's like super delicious. Tends to be garlic a lot of the time. And oh right, and some sesame oil, pure sesame oil. Don't get that cut stuff. Okay, and let's get to mixing. Sorry, cornstarch. To be completely honest, my intention was to put some potato starch in here, and I completely forgot that. So in lieu of that, we're going to use some cornstarch, and this will help bind it, give it some texture, sort of like a meatball. But it is going to need some extra help to get there. This is just going to be a little bit of a assistant to the process. Sorry, just give me a second. Done. Now that that's done, we're going to pick this up and we're going to slam it into the bowl. We're going to do that maybe 5 times. And this will help to develop texture within the meatball. That way it doesn't taste like a bunch of ground meat inside of a wrapper. It will actually have the consistency and the integrity of a dumpling meatball, I guess you can say. Or a dumpling meat filling. This is a very important process of making dumplings, so unfortunately it's not one of those things that you can skip either. Can't really throw this into a blender or a food processor that will overdo it, over-whip it, and then you'll get a really strange texture. Alright, so I don't know, I lost count how many that was, so I'm just going to do it one more time just to be safe. And that's good to go. That smells pretty awesome. Clean that bowl, because we are going to let this sit yet again in the fridge overnight to let those flavors develop. But before we let this sit in the fridge again, I want to test the salinity of this mixture. That's about just a bit. I'm going to throw this into the microwave and cook it and taste it. Alright, so I put this in for about 20-25 seconds and that virtually cooked it. I'm not looking for anything other than salinity at this point so that I know if I need to adjust the salt. Or if I need to just let it develop by itself overnight. But this will give me a good picture as to where we are. Alright. So, I'm glad I did that because this actually does need salt. Kosher salt. I don't know how much that was. You were here to see it. But that should be it. I'm willing to let that sit overnight and see how that develops. I could taste it again in the morning to see how that is. And if it needs more, we'll add some more. Taste test, taste and test, taste and test, right? Until we get it perfectly. That's literally how we get things to taste good. I'm going to press the plastic wrap right up against the meat. And then up against the side of the bowl. Try to ensure that we minimize any oxygen from getting in or remaining inside the package. We don't want any more oxidation to occur because it's already been in the fridge overnight. I bought it yesterday, so this is good to go in the fridge. One more night to marinate. Alright, and that's it for today. I'm going to tidy up and we'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow's the last day, because if you see me one more day, I think you might have seen my entire wardrobe. See you tomorrow. Alright, y'all. Ooh. Alright, so we're just gonna cut up small squares. We're not trying to be too concise here. And then we'll go this way. Those are my kids running by. You know, like pieces like that, ready to go. And now onto the meat and the wrapping. Okay, we're going to take a wrapper and we're going to press the sides while rotating, thereby enlarging the dumpling wrapper. Just to make the wrapping, the actual wrapping, easier for us. Once it's been thinned out and made a bit larger in diameter, just going to water the outside tips, and we're going to put in about a teaspoon and a half of filling. Going to fold it in half. This is an easy way to wrap it so that anyone can do it. We're going to fold it in half and we're going to pinch it almost to the end, just like that. Now we're going to go to the end. We're going to pinch hard, other side, fold in and pinch hard. And we're going to press it down flat on the bottom. And there's your dumpling. Beautiful. I'm going to continue, but I'm not going to make you sit there and watch me. So see you when we're done. All right, and here we are, done. I'm going to throw these in the freezer, freeze them up, because they actually cook better when they're frozen. Maybe about an hour or two. And now on to cooking the dumplings. Okay, so you always want to use a non-stick pan. A non-stick pan will ensure that it won't stick and the dumplings won't rip. Now, as with all non-stick pans, you want to make sure you grease it up before you put it on the heat. So, in a hot pan, we're going to add our dumplings. We don't want the pan to be ripping hot. It will not absorb too much oil, contrary to what some people might think. Just going to put enough to fill the entire pan. I don't really know how many that is, but as you can see, it's good enough. And what we're doing here is we're allowing the bottoms of the dumpling to begin caramelizing before the top starts to cook. Once we have the color on the bottom that we want, we're going to throw on a cover. We're going to put in some water. We're going to throw on a cover to let it steam and boil or steam for about 6 minutes. Then we're going to take off the lid and we're going to let the water evaporate and finish up the dumplings without a lid. So it's a bit of a process, but you'll see at the end. So as you can see, we're there. That's what I want. So now it's time to add in the water. For dramatic effect, I'll do it here. I'm going about halfway up the side of the dumplings. And on with the lid. All right. As you can see, the water's already starting to evaporate. We're almost there. I mean, damn, son. Look at that. And for my preferred dumpling sauce, some Chinese red vinegar, some soy sauce, and some chili oil. Or chili crunch, if you're David Chang. Beautiful. With that hit of soup on the inside, very few things in life are better than that. And there you are, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. Help me get on up, guys. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers, and I'll keep making these delicious ass recipes for you. Thanks for being here. Big love. Peace. Pew, 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 pew. Gunshots.